Pan Mass Challenge. It is the single most successful athletic fundraising event in the world. Let that sink in. Why? How do we know that? Well, because it's raised over $1 billion with a B for the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute and the Jimmy Fund. And it looks like when all is said and done and the money is counted, they're going to throw another $75 million on that pile from this year alone. And the guy that started it all, the founder and executive director of the Pan Mass Challenge, well, I'm lucky enough to have him join me now. Billy Starr. Billy, congrats on another huge year. Are you still sore? Like, do you still get sore after all these years from these rides?
Well, first of all, Rich, before I tell you about my quads, I just have to correct you.
Okay.
We gave $75 million last year. The goal this year is $76 million.
Oh, nice.
I think you would recognize that. I'm sure we'll talk about it. A very challenging environment to raise money this year, given what's going on in Massachusetts with the NIH, et cetera. But to the minutia of my body, my quads are sore. My quads are sore. That's not atypical. My group rides pretty hard. That's getting more challenging through the years, as I've ridden all 46 years. And but it's a good soreness for sure. And I wonder if you're feeling the same.
Oh, I mean, not anywhere near you. This was a great year for me because I was able to bring my son for the first time. He just turned 17, and you know we thought we'd start him off with the smaller one, and we wanted to do it together. And as soon as he was done, he was like, "I want to go to the Cape. Like I want to do the long one." So next year, you may have an 18-year-old down there along with this old fart. Us doing it together. For the long haul. So I have not felt quite the burn that I'm sure you have, but it's enough for this guy.
Well, I know that, cycling is not perhaps your full-time vocation, but my guess is that your son's growth curve will probably exceed you by next year.
No question. There's no, in many ways, he's already gotten past anything that I've ever done. But it's so funny when I saw these people, there were people yesterday or on Sunday wearing these badges that said, 25th year, 26th year. And the fact that this is the 46th year, and I think back about, I'm trying to imagine, Billy, like the year this started, because sports fundraisers, if I'm not mistaken, weren't a thing. I mean, even the term jogging was barely a thing at the time. And it's funny that, bike-a-thons certainly, I'm sure, weren't a thing back in, 1980 and the end of the 70s. So what did people think when you proposed this? Because it sure seems like at the time there was nothing like this around.
Well, that's fair. That's good context, Rich. You're framing a big question, which is to say, first of all, there might have been what were awareness walks, but the PMC, and again, it's not like I studied it at the time, but looking back, we now know all of this to be true. The a-thon industry didn't exist. It was bingo and black tie and direct mail. So it was into that atmosphere that a sport sweat equity event, and it makes perfect sense now, was created. When I walked into the Jimmy Fund in 1980, I think it was April, there were two things I would note. The first is typical. I said, "This is what I'm going to do." They said, "Great, fine, see you later. Have fun." But the other, which was more important, was there was a volunteer named Joanne Goldberg, and they sort of brushed me off to her to focus this kid. What's he about? Blah, blah, blah. And she said, "What's your goal?" And I said, "I want to raise money." And she said, "So you think you're better off doing this by yourself?" Now, my original idea was I was going to bike 302 miles from Williamstown, the northwest corner of Massachusetts, to Provincetown.
Okay.
And am I allowed to swear on this show?
Absolutely. Go for it.
Well, I'm not going to. You got to say, geez. I said, she's right. I got to become an event coordinator. How much money was I going to raise as one person? Take it forward, I've now personally raised $2.7 million and ridden all 46 years. But that was the original concept. A border to border. So, okay, I'm 29 years old. I wanted to track, so I decided to make it a lot easier. I moved year one Springfield, only 1 year, 220 miles. Day one was 140 miles. Picture finishing the Boston Marathon with Heartbreak Hill.
Oh,
So
jeez.
day one was 140 miles that finished with 10 miles of rolling hills
Oh,
in Plymouth in the mile standard track. It was a brutal event.
oh,
And when we moved permanently to Sturbridge in 1981, 17 years later, I started diversifying on routes, etc. And as I know we'll probably talk about also, next year is a big deal for us. We are moving the Central Mass start to Worcester and the College of Holy Cross, which
wow.
is very exciting.
Wow, I actually I'm just hearing that for the first time. That's interesting. I think about when you're starting something like this, there's probably a lot of things when it's almost time to go that you're like, okay, I forgot about this or I forgot about this. Like, I mean, what do you remember about the things? Because right now it's a well-oiled machine. There must have been a lot of bumps in the road and things that you learned about. Like, were people getting lost the first year? Because what do you remember about like some of the bumps that you had to come across in those first couple of years?
Well, I can tell a lot of humorous stories. I could say to you, 46 well-oiled machine. You think I know? I forgot my pillow this past weekend. That was it. And I slept on a mattress with nothing. I didn't sleep very well. It's my own fault. And I tell everybody to read everything. Anyway, I'll answer your question about 1980, which quite frankly, I remember very well. Look, I didn't know what I didn't know. That's often common thing, but we're not talking about like a Super Bowl. This is a serious comment about, I got venture capital behind me, so I can't make a mistake. We got to launch at $1 million. None of that. Yeah. None of that. I just did it because my background, I was an athlete. I was sort of a PEX bad boy. I didn't mind getting into trouble because I figured I could figure things out. And I attracted a bunch of nuts like myself. So in 1980, everybody got lost. We ran out of food. The ferry did not run to take us home. I was thrown into the harbor in Provincetown. There was a picture that's been lost to history. We're all in our red T-shirts, and I'm being thrown into the harbor as the symbolic captain of the ship. We finished at the Macmillan Wharf bar, and we took a bus ride home. That was the only way to get home. And I'm thinking, oh my God, these people, they must hate me, but I could hear on that bus ride, next year, I can help with this. It meant something.
Yeah.
It was filling a part in their life. And I was figuring out, no different than myself, and I'd lost my mother, uncle, and cousin to cancer, that this was filling a gap that, in life you have family and work, but if you have a focus, a desire, there's this third component called community, volunteerism, philanthropy. And PMC was tapping into that. And I got it by Sunday night in spite of all. I mean, you think about it. Everybody lost, running out of food. There was a sense of humor and desperation.
No cell phones if someone got lost. Like you couldn't just call somebody at that time.
None of that. Matter of fact, if you could show it, if you saw the original map, it is the epitome of innocence. My friend Ricky Curson, there was a map of Massachusetts with a line across it. It said like Mass Pike, Route 140, Plymouth, Cape Cod.
Good luck.
And that became a symbol for, not just a symbol, was the map. But I used it in the last 20 years. I've used it as I've embedded it in our heavy hitter gifts to people to say, it was in this innocence that the PMC was created. And look what we've become. But the idea is exactly the same.
Oh.
Exactly the same.
It's true, Billy, too. I mean, it's the one thing that is kind of wild when you speak to everybody and hear everyone's stories is, a couple of years ago, I talked to Andrew Frates, the brother of Pete Frates, started the Ice Bucket Challenge. Yep. And because of the money that they raised, you can point to actual advancements that have been made directly because of the money that came from the Ice Bucket Challenge. In your case, $1 billion is absolutely game-changing in any kind of research. Is there a specific breakthrough or advancement in the cancer research that you can directly point at and say, the Pan Mass Challenge did that?
Well, it works differently. And I'll just quote the president of Dana-Farber, Ben Ebert. There's nothing we do here that doesn't have PMC money attached to it. So it's not their nature or even my nature to say our money did this cure. PMC money every year is attributed to some 700 programs at Dana-Farber, both restricted and unrestricted. And, we're at least 17% of the entire revenue of the Institute, and we're 66% of the Jimmy Fund's annual revenue. So you have a 501c3 nonprofit corporation, 100% dedicated to one charity, which is Dana-Farber. So as you've learned, Rich, as I say, there's a lot riding on us.
Do you have other charities calling you constantly saying, how do you do it?
I've consulted on a fair amount of bike-a-thons.
Yeah.
And I've met with individuals, and look, again, I think for traditional development programs, we were not something they do.
Yeah.
I mean, this is my personality. This is my baby. I'm not an employee of Dana-Farber. I am a trustee of Dana-Farber. We have 15 people here full-time and 4,000 volunteers. Mm-hmm. That's my organization. And they're professional volunteers. And they built this into their world. But it would be more than fair to say to you that for over 25 years, development organizations around the country have paid, all of a sudden you're giving 10, 20, 40, 50, 60, 70 million a year. They're all going, how can we do that?
Yes.
How can we do that?
Well, it's, Billy, my son, he rode for the first time this year. And one of the great things about the Pan Mass Challenge, for people who've never ridden it before, was that when it was done, I wanted to take it all in with him and talk with the people who rode, because each one has a story, something that will move you, inspire you, stories of strength and courage past anything I know I've had to experience. Is there a story of a rider from all of these years of doing this that has stuck with you the most? Out of all the stories you've heard, is there one where you just go, that's what this is about?
Well, I could tell 100 stories. I always feel on the spot when somebody asks me that question. So I'll speak one from yesteryear. One of my best friends who had become chairman of the PMC board, Gordy Pritchett, for 17 years. We're talking about the 80s. In the 80s, I think by 1989, we had 1,000 people riding. But still 40 miles into the event, you're like alone.
Yeah.
It's not a race, not a peloton of anything but this is 1983. So whoever's your pace, that's your new buddy. So he's riding with this woman for 40 miles, and they hit it off. And at which point he finds out that this woman was the critical care nurse for his sister-in-law who passed away, for whom he was riding for.
Oh, wow.
And this goes on all the time. Mm-hmm. All the time, the connectivity of the PMC. It's hard for me to isolate stories, Rich. I meet so many people. I'm pretty good in the moment. Yeah. But it's such an explosive collage of emotion and experience. And I'm also riding 200 miles. Right. I got to eat food. I got to go to the bathroom. I got my mouth full, but I'm listening. Yeah. I'm listening to what people want to tell me, because the PMC means that much to them. And they come back every year. It's fabulous.
We were talking afterwards, and there was a gentleman who we were speaking with, And we didn't realize at the time. And after about 2 minutes of conversation, we found out that he was somebody that worked at Dana-Farber. And all of a sudden, two and two were put together. And he was one of the people that worked on my wife's transplant. He was, and it was like, what a small world. But
yeah, case in point.
Yep. The connections are everywhere, and everyone's got a great story. And, when it comes to great stories, there's always, every year it seems with the PMC, there's one. Like, I spoke with Mike Timlin the other day, and Mike Timlin rode this year for Tim Wakefield and his wife, Stacy. And they were the best of friends. I mean, they were as good of friends as you could be on a baseball team. And, his whole thing was that people think because I played baseball that I'm an athlete, but I stood on a mound. This is a game of cardio. This ride is not something I'm used to. So have you, out of all these years, there's been a pretty interesting amount of celebrities that have tried, see if they can do this 162 miles. And who, have there been any that you've been really impressed with out of the famous names that have come out to support this?
Well, let me follow. Yes, I will. But let me follow up on your comment because I want to amplify your comment about Mike Timlin. And that is to say, my relationship with the Boston Red Sox starts in 2003 through Larry Lucchino, eventually to John Henry and Tom Werner. It became the first time that a gold chip major league franchise of anything, we're not talking about sponsoring a hospital, a bike event. It was a big deal. It created the concept everyday heroes, and so many of the sort of the catchphrases I developed through the years, but that was a big deal. Dawn, Cynthia Nixon, but the players I didn't have access to. Yeah. They weren't, but I did to Mike Timlin. He made himself available to come sign off in a function the PMC was hosting on Lansdowne Street. He's a real person.
Yeah.
And we knew we wanted to invite him back. I had my own moment with Tim Wakefield. Unfortunately, I'm up in the booth as I am every year with PMC night at Fenway, and this is 2 years ago. And we finish our interview, and he grabs me by the arm and says, "Billy, I'm riding next year." And that's the last we ever spoke. I know what a good guy Wakefield was, and to lose both parents is brutal. If I can segue from that heavier comment to celebrities, I would say that the apex moment was, in my own personal experience, in 1 year with multiple connections and serendipity, I met and recruited Johan Koss, 3-time gold winner speed skater in world record time in his hometown in Lillehammer. Greg LeMond. These are all different things. Greg LeMond, 3-time Tour de France winner, and Uda Pippik, 3-time Boston Marathon winner.
Wow.
And through those winter months, I recruited all of them that they would speak and ride the PMC. They not only did that, but they were really of the people.
Yeah.
This was no celebrity entourage. They were dancing on the boat. They were, having beers in the quad. There are no, we don't make a deal out of celebrities. In one of our minds, we created the term, now quite ubiquitous, everyday heroes.
Yeah. We
created that in 1997. You might hear that applied all over the country for anything. Great. I got a Grateful Dead mentality towards copywriting. Go ahead, amplify, steal my stuff. It's fine. I suppose I always wanted to be an ad man, but yeah, that, and we produced a video with those 3 athletes, and they were great people.
Yeah,
they was just great, and I remained friendly with them all. But Lemond's ridden 3 times. Johan had a national, international charity right to play, and Uda was friends with a group of friends, so we saw them through the years. But that was a highlight. There were many other celebrities. A lot of, I remember Jeff Blotnick. God, offensive tackle for the Patriots. They have a foundation. Terrific guy. He said after he wrote it was, I'm forgetting his name. You could help me, maybe.
Are you
He
thinking
said
like
it was.
Matt Light, maybe, or
It could be like. And his
David
wife runs
Andrews?
yes,
Okay.
and his wife runs a foundation. He said literally riding the PMC was the hardest thing he ever did in his life.
I mean, you get a guy that big on a bike,
Yeah, I mean,
it's just,
he's 320 pounds or something. I mean, he was a good sport.
oh yeah.
Like Timlin said, they're not athletes, they're football players, they're baseball players.
I just want to know,
Well,
did Lamond try to smoke everyone? Like, I know that he knows it's a charity thing, but there's got to be that thing inside of him. Did he get out there and just try to crush it?
I can't tell a story that I'd like to tell. It's pretty fun. I'm not going to tell it. Greg was not in the best of shape when we became friends.
Okay.
However, I rode with him, and while he wasn't in great shape, when being behind him and watching how he rides,
Yeah.
how he descends at speed, you realize you were with a different level of athlete. It was a
Yeah.
great, and Johan, as an aerobic wonder that he was. I didn't get to ride with Uda. She left out of Wellesley. But these two guys rode with my posse, and we were all pretty fit. Johan he was a god. He was a god. He might still be.
Well, Billy, when you do the Pan Mass Challenge, you have a lot of time to think, and there was one thing that popped in my head a couple of times, and excuse me for the absurdity, but I was wondering as I was watching some of these people, especially hitting the hills, has anyone ever tried to sneak an e-bike onto the course?
Rich, we allow e-bikes. We're raising money.
Oh, really?
We're raising money.
You should have told me that before I raced. It would have been so much easier.
This is not a race. You get, I'm not on an e-bike, but a lot of my friends are. Rich, I mean, look, you're clearly not a businessman. So, I mean, look, I'm trying to raise as much money as I can.
Right.
Do you think I want to lose my friends who may be 50, 60, 70 years old because they can't, if they're happy and they're on an e-bike and they know how to ride an e-bike, yeah, they're going to work less hard, but they might still raise $50,000. You get your head on straight, man.
It's a great point.
We're raising money.
You got cash. You can bring yourself a hot rod. You can.
No motors.
No motors. Okay.
No motors.
No motors. Just the e-bikes, of course. And the other thing I was thinking about is, Billy, I've been fortunate enough. I'm not a serious bike rider. I like riding my bike. I do.
I figured that out.
Yeah. I mean, you can just tell by the terms I use and my lack of intelligence when it comes to all things bike riding. But the one time that I went ass over tea kettle, the one huge spill that I had was when a deer had run right out onto my bike path. And it was, those things just dart out of nowhere. I didn't see it coming. I was looking the other way and I turned and I flipped. Has there been like any crazy animal encounters like during the Pan Mass Challenge?
There have. There was a couple of years ago, it was in southeastern, and how with people with cell phones, there was a moose that came out. No, it was a horse. There was a horse that came out on the road. You're talking about like hundreds of riders, and the horse started running with the riders. I don't know, I wasn't there, but I saw the videos of it. Obviously over the course of the days, over 14 routes, we're pretty spread out and that type of thing. But it was quite the imagery.
Where was this? Like, what part of the course was this?
I want to say it was like Taunton, Rehoboth. I'm not sure where, but you get the idea.
I was thinking more like a wild turkey, maybe like a small deer, something like that, but a full-on horse. God, right? Oh my God! I don't know
I will tell you, but on the piece, I personally have had over my years, I've come across bear, deer, fox, wolf. I've had my own, and moose. Yeah, encounters with wildlife while on a bicycle.
What was the bear contact like? Like, what was that story about?
It was, so in my older days, me and my buddy, now deceased Todd Miller, who was a 3-time cancer survivor, We used to do a tradition that's now been more modified, but still lives, called the solstice ride. And the solstice ride was on the solstice, the summer solstice, of a mileage always bigger than the Pan Mass Challenge. So I should be properly trained, but also spiritually, it's northern New England, but it's a bigger ride. And for 3 years, he and I would ride Williamstown to Provincetown. One year we tried to do it nonstop, but we got lost at 11 o'clock at night and started ending up back towards Boston. But it was in that early morning on Route 116, which crosses over the Berkshires in like North Adams, Mass. And we're cresting that. I think at that point you're up about 1,600 feet. And a bear just walked across the road. I did not feel threatened.
Oh, good.
He was like looking like, what are you guys doing here?
You're in my world.
But it happens. Yeah, you're in my world. Exactly.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, thank goodness there was none of that this year. So Billy, this has been a successful 46 years. As an understatement, successful is not even a strong enough word for what you guys have been able to accomplish. But every year, it sounds like, I'm sure you take a look and you say, how can we do this and make it even bigger and make it even better? And you had kind of mentioned at the beginning of this interview that next year is going to be a little different than this year. How is it going to be different, the Pan Mass Challenge in 2026?
Thank you for asking. We are since 1981, we are moving our Central Mass staging area from Sturbridge to Worcester in the College of Holy Cross. And it will be modern buildings, a bigger city, more hotel rooms that are modern, a softer century instead of 109 miles and 4,200 or 4,600 vertical. It'll be exactly 100 miles and 3,800. That makes it'll be at least 10% easier. Not that a century ride is ever easy. And we're really looking forward to the city of Worcester embracing the PMC and bringing a new cadre of cyclists and sponsors and volunteers, and not going to miss that Friday afternoon traffic that goes around 84 and the Mass Pike that sort of clogs up for an hour after Worcester. So all good things. I loved Sturbridge, many, many, many good memories, but I'm very excited about Holy Cross and Worcester.
Oh, well, that sounds awesome. And easier's better, especially if it's going to be one of my first years doing the long one. I'll any kind of advantage I can get. I'll take it.
Right now, Rich, I'm just going to tell you, if you intend to do that, you better get on your bike a few more times or get an e-bike.
That's true. That's right. Maybe I'll just get the e-bike. Now that I know I can do that, hey, I'm in, Billy. I am in. I'll do it as long as you want. I am in. But Billy, I guess on a personal note, I just want to say, I have seen for the last 12 years firsthand the miracles that the people at Dana-Farber Cancer Center do. And I'm not speaking in hyperbole either. My wife is alive because of Dana-Farber. They were able to, after she relapsed twice, there was a drug that was still in development that she was able to be one of the people who was in the test group with because of Dana-Farber. Something that was developed through, Dr. Stone, Dr. Soy, all the great doctors over there. And it's because of that she's alive. And I know how much the funding, how much money goes towards Dana-Farber from the Pan Mass Challenge and, of course, the Jimmy Fund. And, it's as on a personal note, thank you for doing this. And I'm sure there's many other people who, come up to you all the time and tell you the same thing. $1 billion is about as significant as you can get when it comes to raising money for a charity. And thanks. And, without getting too Pollyanna, thank you. It is a game changer.
Thank you, Rich. That's very nice. And, if when you step up to the bigger routes, we do a living proof toast, cancer survivor toast, at the finish line of day one at the Mass Maritime Academy. There are over 1,100 riders and volunteers who are cancer survivors. So your message is their message. And I'm sure it's your wife's message that 200 miles on a rainy day would probably sound pretty good to her versus treatment. But if you have to have treatment to be a Dana-Farber, with the talent that is there and the focus that is there, they're a great community, but the PMC offers hope as well as the money, because we're a big event physically, emotionally, spiritually, but over 330,000 people made up last year's gift of 75 million. So this has been embraced, not just Massachusetts and New England, but across the country. And we had 11 representatives from 11 countries as well.
And it's not too late to donate, even though the race is over. I know you can still go to the website's pmc.org. Is that correct? Do I have that correct?
Right.
Okay.
We call it a ride, not a race, Rich. We got to train you, man. Before you do this podcast next year, we got to go over a few things.
That's right. Listen, if anything, I've always been unprofessional. That has not changed. Billy, thank you for everything. Appreciate it. Congrats on another successful year. And looks like next year I'm actually going to have to buy the shorts with the butt pad. I'm serious. All right, we're gonna go hard next year.
Well, you're starting to sound like a biker, but you got a year to get your act together.
That's
so,
right.
Thank you, Rich.
Thanks,
you very
Billy.
much.
Appreciate your time.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, bud.